Hey friends, welcome back to Learning Made Fun, the ultimate destination for IT training content. Now today we're going to learn about Linux commands, and they just so happen to be my personal favorites. So if anybody asks, yes, I'm guilty. These are actually some of my favorite commands. Now whether you're a newcomer or a longtime subscriber, I've got some exciting and informative content lined up just for you. Grab those snacks, hit that like and subscribe button, and let's jump right into it, my friends. Look at where we are right now using the print working directory, and we notice that we're inside of var logs. I want to make sure I'm all the way back to the top, so I did the cd with a backslash. Now if I do the print working directory, I'm on my root folder right now. Now I did that with the pwd to show me where I was, and the cd for the change directory. If I want to see what's inside of this, I can do that with ls. Or if I want more detail, I can say ls-l, and it'll show me the files and any directories that are in here. And I know that because the very first letter in this case to the extreme left is a D. So these are all directories. If I had a dash in there, for example, it'd be a file. But these are all directories. And then I'm going to use the clear command to keep my my slate clean. Now, if I did have a file in there other than just the directories, I could copy them, I could remove them, and I could move them. So let's go ahead and create a file. We're going to say touch, and we're going to say file1.txt. Now, if I do the long listing again, like before, they all have a D because they're all directories with the exception of the file1.txt. Notice there's no D there, it's got the dash. So I have my file1.txt and I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to say file1.txt and I'm going to call this one file2.txt. And if I do my ls for listing long, I now see that I have two files. Notice the two dashes on the extreme left. I did that with the copy. Now I can also move it. And let's make a directory, and we're going to call this training. There's my new training folder, and I'm going to move those two files in there. So I say mv file1.txt, and then I want to move it into the training folder. Now I only see the file 2, so once again move file2.txt. Oops, sorry, mv for move file2.txt training. I don't see any files anymore, but what if I do a change directory into that training folder, and then I do an ls, and in here I have file 1 and file 2. So I moved it with the with the mv for move into the directory that I did with the mk directory. Now, I want to see if there's anything inside these files to read. I can do that with cat file1.txt, and nothing came up. How about cat file2? Well, since it's a copy of file 1, chances are there's nothing in there. But I could add text by doing nano. So nano is a file editor, just like Vim is. And I could say file1.txt. And now in here I can say some text of choice, and then I'm going to use Control X and Control Y, and that closes the editor. At first glance there's nothing to see here, but if I do the cat like I did before for file1.txt, some test of choice. What about file 2? Did that get affected when I edited that file? Let's find out. And there's nothing in there, nothing to see. We went ahead and used nano, we added some text, and so now what I want to do is I want to look at the permissions for those two files. So I have file1.txt and file2.txt. If I did ls-l for long, notice the permissions. I have a dash because it's a file, rw, read, write, that's for the owner, root is the owner, the user itself. The first R is for the group, which in this case is root, and then everyone else, every other person that's going to use this has the ability to read it only. So let's do a change modify, and we're going to change the permissions to 777 so that everybody can read, write, and execute. Not something I recommend, but for training purposes only, we're going to do that to file1.txt. Now if I do ls, notice that file, because it has executable, is green, while the second file is not. And if I went back to my long listing, notice dash is still there, but the first line shows that everybody has read, write, and executable, as opposed to the first one. Now notice how the owner is root for both of them. What if I want to add a user? This user is going to be Ted, right? So I'm adding a user named Ted. Let's give him a password. And I want Ted to be the owner of that file. So let's clear this. Let's go back to ls and ls-l so we can see who owns it. Right now it's owned by root, but I want to change the owner of that file. So I'm going to say Ted for file1.txt. Now if I do the ls-l, notice that root is still the owner of the second file, but now Ted is the owner of file1.txt. So in this example, Ted can read, write, and execute file 1, while root can read and write on file 2. Okay? So we were able to change the mode for the permissions with chmod, and we were able to change the owner of the file with chown. Now let's move on to user group and management. So I added a user earlier. I went ahead and I said useradd, and I said Ted. How about Bob now? So right now, useradd Bob, nothing happened. Why is that? Well, earlier I used Bob already exists. So let's see this. Let's say cat etc and then password. Notice on this list on the bottom I see that I have a couple of users. I have root, I have Bob, I have Ted, I have Noe, and I have MS SQL. So those are the users that I have. And earlier I said user add, let's say Liz. So now let's go back to that file. And Liz was added to it. Alright, so we're going to go back to the top and let's look at that file again. passwd. And yep, there I just added Liz. And I can also do this with, I added a user, but I can also add a group. Right, so let's just say group add HR department. Okay, I just added one. Let's add another one called production. Group add production. Okay, and I want to see where those are. Where did those show up? So if I say a cat group down at the bottom, I notice on this list that I have HR and I have production. Let's try something we learned earlier. What if I say trail? I wonder if this will work. I really don't know. And that was for my group. I can't use it on this. How about tail? Maybe I spelled it wrong. Tail, etc, group. It did work. I just spelled it wrong. So I did. If I didn't do tail, notice how I had a long list. But by doing tail, I just saw the last 10. So going from the bottom up, I have production, HR, and I also have my users. So just like with the group itself, I can say tail now that I know that this is going to work. And then password, and I see the last 10 of the users that I have on this machine: Liz, Bob, Ted, Noe, MS SQL system, and so on, right? So we added a user, a couple of them. We added a group, a couple of them. Now let's change the password for Liz. Okay, so when I created Liz, I had to give her a default password, but maybe now Liz has to go in there and change her own password. So if she was tasked to do that, she would say passwd for Liz, and it's being prompted to enter the new password, right? So let's enter the new password, and you got to retype it, and that's how you change the password. So you enter passwd and then the username. Well, can we do that with the group, right? Or better yet, can we modify the user? I know, let's add the user. We said maybe Liz wanted to change her password, so we would want to put her under the super user group, right? So that you would add group sudo and then Liz. Okay, that's what I was doing wrong. So user modify, and then I want to add it to the group sudo and then Liz. So now Liz is part of that group. So let's have some fun with this. Let's do that now for Bob. So we're going to say usermod. See if I get this right. We're going to say usermod because we're going to modify the user, and we're going to add to the sudo group Bob. All right. So now if I say tail etc passwords, there's Bob, and there is Liz down at the bottom. Okay, so here's how to remove them. So we're going to stop here for now, and thanks for joining. Don't forget to joining us today on the most used Linux commands. Don't forget to like and subscribe.